Good afternoon, everybody. It is our Wednesday afternoon weekly live with MJ. We're glad to see everybody. I'm thinking I'm looking a little different today from that picture that we have on the screen. I really got a really short haircut, so have to deal with that. But anyways, it's Wednesday. The colors in the area are absolutely stunning. So we hope that everybody gets a chance to get out there, take a hike, take a walk down the river walk, take up to the mountains. They're some of our favorite places. And so if you don't know where some of those places are, if you're new to town, give us a call or give the visitor center a call at 970-585-1200. They can give you some great places for some beautiful drives, as well as some great hikes out there. I want to mention before, we have a really important show this week, and we've been talking about and reminding our businesses that you need to get out there and start looking at your business for the upcoming fall and winter months. You know, it's getting cold in the mornings and in the evenings, and people waiting outside. We still need to social distance. And so there's some rules and regulations that we need to follow. But not everybody has large insides of their restaurant or their retail store. They may have a large patio, and then the reverse happens in the winter. So what are they going to be able to do in order to make it through this winter financially? And so our guest today is JamesDickoff, who is the town planner with the town of Pagosa Springs. Before we switch over to James, I do want to remind our business community that this is the time of year that we open up the board nominations to the public. And I mean the public, I mean the chamber membership public. So you do need to be a chamber member in good standing for a year. You are eligible to self-nominate to be on the chamber board. The length of time that you serve on the chamber board is 3 years. We typically have a meeting every month, and sometimes there's subcommittees or some additional meetings, such as budget season and the like. And also we have our business after hours, and we also have our events. So we ask our business owners and or board members to help us through those times. And it's a great way for you to be our ears and our eyes and to talk to other members that are in our community. So if you are interested, you can go to the chamber website at pagosachamber.com, and the nomination form is right on the homepage. So if you're interested as well, and I'm not going to take up the whole show just talking about this, so if you'd like to find out more information, please give us a call at 264-2360. I'll be happy to talk to you about what that entails. The nomination forms are due by November 6th. And then what happens is 3 business members are put forward before the chamber membership, and only 3 of the 6 are selected to serve a 3-year term. On the chamber board, every year 3 board members go off and 3 board members come on. So it's really a good process that keeps the board fresh and integrated. We have business representation from all over the board, including retail and the service industry, lodging, restaurants. It just goes on because we're here to be the voice of the business community. So if you have an interest, give me a call. Again, 264-2360. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. So let's move on to our guest today, and that would be JamesDickoff. And James probably has one of the most thankless jobs in Pagosa Springs. He always is there working and not only abiding by the rules and regulations, but also trying to work with our community to see how it can fit, to always try and make improvements and make something happen. James, I'd really love to give you a shout out for the work that is being done in the town of Pagosa Springs for all our trails and the Riverwalk and the connections and things. It's the Town to Lakes Trail. It's a long and involved process. And I know you've worked hard. You've written grant after grant. So congratulations and thank you for all the work that you're doing on behalf of our community and the town of Pagosa Springs. But today we're really going to talk about the change of seasons and what's coming up for us and how our businesses, what can they do if they don't have enough space and they maybe want to use, similar to the summer, we used decks and parking areas to expand our outdoor areas. What's going to happen in the winter and what can our businesses do and what do they need to do to talk to you about this?
Well, thanks, Mary Jo, for inviting me today, and thanks for the kudos. I appreciate it. There's a lot of work involved besides just me and getting all those trails done, but I appreciate the recognition. Well, thanks again for inviting me to speak about some considerations for all businesses, but this probably mostly impacts restaurants. Where are you going to seat your guests with the reduced capacity of your indoor areas? So we've been working on a winter seating temporary structure outline to help guide the process. We hope to have that completed today, and we're going to actually hand deliver these packets to the restaurants within town so that they're aware of the requirements when you purchase a tent, for example, for outdoor seating. There's a lot of things to consider. It needs to be fire rated. It needs to meet the building code for certain standards. So we really want to get that information out because it's really important for everybody to be aware of those standards and regulations before they buy something.
Sure.
And then they're stuck with something that doesn't comply with the fire or building code, for example. So there's a lot of things to consider when you put up a tent in the wintertime, right? So where is it going to be located? It needs some distance from other combustible materials. It needs to be separated from the permanent structure. I think that I don't have in front of me, I think it's 10 feet, for example. It needs to be a certain distance away from vehicles that are parked. And then, of course, how are you going to heat that tent, right? You can't just stick any kind of, construction heater in that tent and without fumigating your guests out of there and creating a CO2 issue within the tent there.
They'll be passed out before the end of dinner.
Right. And of course, snow loading, right? It snows in Pagosa Springs. Hopefully it does this winter. And that's a big concern for tents because they're not rated for snow loading. So what's your maintenance plan for making sure that during storms, as your guests are sitting in there, is it appropriate for them to be in there? What's your protocol for your staff member that comes in the morning to rake off the snow off that tent structure? For example, you don't want them inside pushing up on the tent because they'd be inside the structure if it collapsed, right? So what's your protocol? So we really want everybody to be thinking about all this before they dive in and start purchasing or renting something, because there's a lot of things to consider. But our goal now is to really make sure people are aware of those regulations, the things to consider before they go out and make those purchases. We believe, just like many other things that have had a purchase run, if you will, tents may start being in short supply, both ordering and renting, because this is happening nationally, right? Everybody's looking for space for the wintertime. So tents are going to be in high demand real quick here. So we want to get this information out so that restaurants can make their determination and secure those facilities if that's what they choose to do moving forward to get through the winter. So typically, we would not allow a tent to be erected in the wintertime because of a lot of considerations, the heating, the CO2 issues, the snow loading. But for this winter, obviously, we are going to bend the rules a little bit, and we are making special considerations to allow these temporary structures, tents, canopies, any kind of membrane structure to be erected during the wintertime to help restaurants with their seating capacity. So we are finalizing that form. We're going to get that out. So there is a temporary structure application that'll have to be submitted with the building department. That application does go through all the criteria you need to consider. So we're going to try to keep it as user-friendly and bullet pointed as much as possible so that it's pretty easily understandable. The second part of all this is, there are some funds that businesses can actually apply for reimbursement of costs they have expensed in relation to accommodating the impacts of COVID on their business. And that can just, I believe the starting point was all the way back in March. when you started collecting those expenses. It could be masks, sanitizers, other supplies that you would have not normally purchased and you purchased because of COVID-19 to ensure your business was going to be functional through that whole period. This also applies to tents, which is really a big bonus for restaurants that are really looking into a tent structure, because there's an expense with tents. The funding is certainly being administered from the Department of Local Affairs. It's federal funding. So it's important to note that you really need to make sure that these expenses were only related to what you purchased to accommodate the COVID-19 issue. Because it's reimbursable, it's just important to note that the state and the feds have the right to audit that reimbursement request to make sure it truly was an eligible expense that can be reimbursable. All that to say is, there's a small risk that, something that may be borderline may not get reimbursed. So you just need to be aware of that. You do need to purchase those items. You need to provide proof of the purchase, receipts, etc. The deadline for the town to process those reimbursement requests is November 30th. Because of the processing time, we need to get it to the state. The town has a processing element before we submit it to the state for reimbursement. So we need to have a little bit of time. That's why that November 30th deadline is in place. So up to $7,500, it's pretty substantial. The town has received a lot of money for helping with COVID, and this is one of those items that is going to be a part of that funding that the town has received. So the tents kind of fall into that as well. So they are a temporary structure. They're really meant to get you through the winter. And in the tent scenario, that does include how you're going to heat that structure. Is it going to be heated with something that's going to be directed from the main building, or are you going to buy a heater specifically for the tent? But we view the tent and the heating apparatus for that structure to be reimbursable items. Again, we'll get this application out to everybody. If you need more information, please contact us in the planning and or building department. We can kind of review that in person with you on your specific needs and your specific location. So it is also important to note that, again, that the use of tents throughout the winter is really specific to this winter. It's not an every winter thing. We want to make sure that people aren't buying temporary structures and anticipating to use them year round, because they're not allowed to be used year round because of some of the issues I stated earlier. So that's really important to note. Again, we're going to get these packets handed out to all the restaurants within the next week. We've got them here in the office, and we're available to answer questions anytime.
Okay. James, you referred mostly to tents. What if someone said, wow, I would like to just put a waiting area outside my restaurant, and can I just maybe sink a couple of poles and just do a wood structure over that? Does that variance include the town looking at a building structure, something like that as well?
Yes, I think we'd be receptive to that as well, Mary Jo. And I think, again, that it kind of falls under this temporary structure consideration. So your snow loading, if you're going to heat it, we need to know what that heating apparatus is going to be and if it's going to be vented appropriately and things like that. So yes, it would. That would qualify as well. I would note that there's been a couple restaurants that are actually moving forward with a non-reimbursable improvement, which is putting an actual framed roof over their patio area. And then they're going to have soft tent sides to enclose it in. So in that scenario, for example, and we've got a couple restaurants that are moving forward with this type of scenario, you'd have that roof for year-round use in perpetuity, right? So you're sheltering from inclement weather during the summertime, and then you could have flexible tent material on the sides. You could roll down in case it was windy during the summertime, and in the wintertime, you could actually heat that structure. So there's kind of some hybrid options out there as well. And in that scenario, the framed roof would not be reimbursable, but the flexible tent sides and the heating would be reimbursable items through that CARES Act.
Okay. So the important part is don't wait till the end. Don't wait till November 29th. And, because the town does have to review the plans. So it's not just an automatic, here's my plans, I'm starting tomorrow kind of deal. They have to come to you and they have to get them approved. So we're encouraging our businesses to start looking at your areas now. And then when the guidelines come to you within the next week, to reach out to your office.
Yes, I think everybody's probably starting to scratch their heads a little bit as the weather has cooled down in the evenings and the morning on how they're going to start accommodating their guests in the wintertime. So this is a great time to start thinking about it and working with the town to identify the best scenario for your location.
Sure. And we did mention restaurants, but we do have some retailers out there. We have some ski rental shops, for example, that may, in the mornings at 7 or 7:30, that's when everybody comes in to rent their skis, and the store may not be able to accommodate the large groups that come in. So they may need to look at a waiting area immediately outside their entrance. So it's not, while yes, of course, our restaurant community is the largest participant of this, retailers take a look at what you're offering as well.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mary Jo. And I mentioned restaurants because that seems to be probably the biggest, the business with the biggest need for that outdoor space. But you bring up a great question. It's not specific to restaurants. It can be any business in town that could put up a temporary structure to accommodate their needs.
Sure. All right, James, any last words of wisdom for our business community before we sign off on today's live stream?
Well, I just want to thank all of them for really hanging in there this summer. It's been challenging and interesting for all of us. I know that everybody's had to make modifications in their business operations and their personal lives and pretty much everything we've been doing. And as everybody knows, I know a lot of businesses have been very negatively impacted through this, but we've also seen a lot of businesses that have been thriving this summer. And we've seen a huge increase in our sales tax collections, and that's coming directly from those businesses that have been working hard throughout the summer. And we've all seen the amazing amount of tourism increase this summer in our town because of COVID. So I really appreciate all the hard work our businesses do for our community. They're obviously an important part of our community and the function of our community and the guests' experience while they're here enjoying the mountains. Thank you.
Great. All right. Thank you, James. We appreciate you being on today. It's important. So thank you so much. All right, everybody out there in the business community, if you didn't see this at 2:30 and as we are live streaming right now, you can pass this on to your friends and make sure that you tune in at a later time today or tomorrow. Do take a look at your business and reach out to the town and the planning department at the town of Pagosa Springs. Structures really important for the upcoming months and your financial viability as well. It's, we're out there trying to help you make the money that you can and stay in business to the best of your ability. If you have any questions, please give the town of Pagosa Springs Planning Department a call, 264-4151, and speak to James or someone in their department. We hope this was helpful for you. Everybody have a great week. Once again, get out there, enjoy these gorgeous colors before they're gone. It's one of our favorite times of year. And thank you all so much. Let's get ready for winter smartly. Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Bye-bye.